everyone, and welcome to December's Comfort Book Club discussion of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. As always, my mum Donna has joined me.
Hello everyone.
To discuss the book together.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of the Comfort Book Club readers who sent in a voice message to add to our discussion today as well. Now, if you haven't read Little Women before, if you haven't seen the films, then as always, I'm just pointing out that there will be spoilers in this discussion, and there are definitely a few twists and turns to the plot of Little Women. So if you don't want it spoiled for you, then maybe read it first and watch this later. But for this discussion, we've chosen to read the edition of Little Women that includes both Little Women and Good Wives. I think they're more commonly separated in the UK.
I think so.
Than in America.
I think so. That's probably true. I think it was Little Women 1 and Little Women 2 in this.
Something like
there was a time between them, but here they've always tended to be two separate.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, we've read the one with both together.
Yes.
And the first half of the book kind of is loosely inspired by Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah, I love that
aspect
of
it too.
Yes.
And you see the girls kind of battle with their own challenges and their own personality flaws.
That's right.
And then by the second half, they get to reap rewards, really,
exactly.
I think, for their endeavours.
Exactly. And you see how their characters have been formed by the first half too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Now, obviously, we've chosen it as a December read. Little Women is a book we've both loved from childhood.
I've read it again and again. I think you've read it a lot as well. So
yes, and I think you first read it aloud to me.
Yes. I did, yes.
Which is lovely. I mean, it's a wonderful book for mothers to share with their daughters, isn't it?
It is. It's a lovely book to actually share together. I think that's a special thing.
Yes. But for me, and I think for you, it is always especially a book that we think of in December and at Christmas time.
Yeah, that opening. Yes,
exactly.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah. So Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without Little Women.
Yes,
and,
it's true.
That's why we've chosen it, not only because it's such a huge comfort read for both of us, but also that it's a book that we love to return to at Christmas time in particular. So we really hope you've enjoyed reading along with us this month. One of our readers, Emma, who sent in a voice message, actually also commented on the fact that she loves the Christmassy feel to some of the book. So let's hear Emma's message first.
Hi Miranda and Donna. Thank you for choosing Little Women as December's book club choice. It's a perfect book to read at this time of year, especially because it opens at Christmas. Those are some of my favourite scenes from the book, and I love how Louisa May Alcott describes the comfort of home at Christmas, when she tells us about Amy, Jo, Meg and Beth knitting away in the twilight while the December snow fell quietly without and the fire crackled cheerfully within. I think that's such a lovely image, and the book is filled with similar descriptions of domestic coziness and the joy of simple things. I also forgot how much I had previously enjoyed the section about the Pickwick Club this time around. I just love the idea of the girls sat up in their garret every week and contributing to the Pickwick portfolio. The articles and poems from that chapter are just delightful and make me wish that I had been a part of a similar secret society at that age. Most of all, though, Little Women for me is all about the bond of sisterhood. And being a twin myself, my sister is my best friend, so this book resonates with me so much for that reason. The girls have ups and downs and they clash and fall out, but ultimately they support one another through hardships and remain devoted companions. They are a united front, and each girl finds solace and comfort in her sisters, and that seems to me to be at the heart of this book and what makes it so special. Thank you again for choosing it this month.
Thank you, Emma. I loved your message.
Yes, thank you so much, Emma.
And one thing that we talked about together is how much we also enjoyed the domestic scenes in the book. And I think those scenes make the book for me an especially appropriate winter read.
Oh, it's so true. Yes, they're so cozy, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yes,
and
yes.
even though these scenes go all through the months of the year.
Yeah.
I think winter is really the season of the home and of domesticity. So that's partly why I do love to read Little Women in the winter.
Absolutely. It's there's so much indoor warmth there with fires and the girls sitting together with their knitting and their work, and it's just lovely.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they have a real love for their home, and I think that really comes out.
They really do,
too.
And they take care of it, and they like it when it's clean and neat and tidy, and when they fall down with their chores and everything, they miss the comforts of their home.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And yes, another theme, of course, in the book is that of sisterhood. I think that is such a central theme, as you say, and I think for me it was amazing reading the book again this time, how kind of fresh and human and in many ways quite modern a lot of the characters felt of the sisters, particularly I guess Jo and Meg and Amy.
Yes.
Over Beth, although I have a soft spot for Beth.
Soft spot for Beth as well. Who doesn't? Yes.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I agree that it seems very modern. Like they really had real personalities that seemed very much, and in fact they were based on real characters in real life. So it's a lovely book for that.
Yes, and I think that's one of the reasons they feel so real, so human, flaws and all that they all have, is that Louisa May Alcott really did base the sisters on herself and her sisters. You know, Jo is modelled on her, and others on her real life sisters. And I think that has to be a big part of why they are so vividly drawn. But I think too that every girl, when she first reads Little Women, does tend to identify a bit more with one of the sisters. And I was thinking about that, and I mean, I don't think I actually identified really, really strongly with one sister over another. I think I identified with aspects of them. Like, you know, with Jo, I loved that she loved books and writing. But I couldn't really identify with her really sort of tomboyish side so much. I identify more with Meg.
Yes.
In that
I
way of like
that.
liking nice dresses and things like that.
And Beth's desire to be good and, you know, to be a peacemaker, I always loved that about. I identified with that, obviously. You know, she was almost too good to be true, but you identify with that need to be better, you know, and I think it was so sweet. And what about now, though? Have you changed?
Well, I think I have actually, because I really didn't like Amy much ever when I was younger, but actually on this reread of the book, I found myself understanding Amy a lot better, and actually liking her a lot more, and identifying a bit more with her.
If anything, I feel she's almost the most real in some ways. You know, her faults are
very, very human.
Yes. Yeah, they really are. Yeah. I loved that.
How about you? Did it change at all on this?
Well, of course, I must admit now it's Marmie's character that I was looking at the most and really sort of nodding along with and thinking. I think when I was young and read it at first, it was Meg for me. It was Meg, and that lasted a while because, you know, the setting of the jam and the jelly and the whole. Oh gosh, I think, you know, that's something.
Yes, I find that such a funny scene.
It's hilarious.
Yes. I know. I think who doesn't feel for poor Meg?
Yes.
I know. And I love those real human sides to the girls' stories that come out. But two of our listeners sent in messages about which character they most identified with. So let's listen to Laura's message first, who identified a lot with Meg.
Well, that's not just me then.
No. So let's listen to Laura's message.
Hello Miranda, hello Donna. This is Laura from Italy. Little Women is a book with a special place in my heart. I received my first copy as a Christmas present from a dear family friend when I was only 9 years old, and reading it I felt really grown up. My heroine was definitely Jo March, so lively, brilliant, rebellious, but with a golden heart. But as I read it later, when I was older, I changed my mind and I felt a strong connection with Meg, and even today I must say she is my favorite March sister. In particular, during my first year of marriage, I remembered Meg's struggle with the currant jelly because I experienced something similar more than once before realizing that cooking is not one of my skills. This book is so special because the characters have become old friends. Their stories are a cherished part of my life.
Oh, thank you, Laura.
Yes, thank you, Laura.
And yes, I think that's so true, that the characters really do become friends.
They do.
They feel like returning to friends when you pick up Little Women for another reread. And I think it's interesting that Laura's choice of which sister she identified with more changed as well,
Yes.
from childhood
Yes.
to adulthood. And
Yes.
I'd be interested to know from everyone else who was reading along with us, if this was a reread for you, do you feel that your choice of which sister you most identify with changed at all from childhood to now in adulthood? Because I'm definitely
That's a very
interested.
interesting question. I am too.
To know that. So do let us know. And then Sherri sent in a message as well saying how much she identifies with Jo, which I know is a favourite for so many. So let's hear Sherri's message.
Hi, this is Sherri from California. Hi, Miranda and Donna and the members of the book club. I'm really happy you guys chose Little Women. My mom introduced me to the story when I was a little girl, and I love the book, and reading it was like reading it with her. My favorite's Jo. I love her love of books and reading and her theatricality and her independence. And my favorite scene is under the umbrella where Friedrich asked Jo to marry him. Thank you for this choice. It actually was so lovely to bring these memories back and thoughts of my mom. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sherri.
Yes, thank you, Sherri.
I'm so glad you enjoyed reading the book again. And I think what's interesting too, that I was thinking about, because we recently rewatched a couple of the Little Women films, like the most recent one that came out, I think in 2020, and then the one from the 1990s,
From your childhood.
my childhood, the one I grew up with Winona Ryder and Claire Danes and so many great actresses in it. And I think when you watch those two films, you are really looking a lot at the family and at the events through Jo's eyes in particular. And she really is cast as the heroine of the story.
But the novel's not quite like that, is it?
No, it isn't, is it? And I think that's interesting. Something we noticed was that each sister is actually given pretty equal time in the book.
Definitely. Their characters are so well explored. One doesn't just have Jo's point of view. There's also an authorial presence there too. And I think, you see all four sisters very clearly.
You do. And they sort of get their pretty equal share of the pages, I think, too. They get their own chapters as well. And that carries on even into the second half of the book in their adulthood. You really get to see each of the sisters' perspectives on things.
And very much.
And I think sometimes, like, I forget that when I just watch the film.
You love them to do like a series again of Little Women, a modern one, where they give each sister
like
time.
a television series.
Yes, a television
that would be nice.
series.
It could really go in like deeper and longer into each of the
I'd really
sisters.
enjoy that,
actually.
I would too.
Do you have a favourite of the two films? Or, I know there are more films as well, much older ones.
Much older of those
the more
two.
modern ones.
I think the most recent one was beautifully shot. There was something about that was very special. But I think probably for me, the one that you watched as a child, I sat and watched with you, and we talked a lot about. And I thought that was actually, Winona Ryder was a brilliant Jo in that.
She was,
and very strong, all of them.
Yes,
all of them were very
agree
strong.
All the sisters were really, really strong in that one. I think that's partly why that one's my favourite as well. But let us know too which of the films you like the most. But it is interesting to compare the films to the book too, and realise how much more all of the sisters have a central role to the story, more than you maybe realise if you would just watch the films. Although of course Jo was modelled on Louisa May Alcott herself.
Definitely, it was autobiographical, wasn't it? With the whole thing.
Exactly.
So I think that is understandable. Also, why so many people connect to her, because she's in some way the sort of centre figure of the
Yes, I think that is true. But you're right as well. You said there's an authorial voice that comes out to the story, and there definitely is, and that often speaks to point clues as to the different sisters' characters.
Absolutely.
And another one of our Comfort Book Club readers, Heather, sent in a message about one of her favourite chapters in the book, but also a little favourite sort of quote in the book that sort of points to this. So let's hear Heather's message now.
Dearest Miranda and Donna and members of the Comfort Book Club, this is Heather from Maine, and I hope you are all doing well. There is no chapter so moving to me as the chapter titled Beth's Secret. I think it must be one of the most beautiful combinations of words and sentences ever pulled together to describe the ultimate goodbye. The particular line that moves me most is Beth's statement to Joe. I'm not afraid, but it seems as if I should be homesick for you, even in heaven. The following paragraph is all quietness and absorption, followed by a comparison of the four sisters to birds. Joe to the gull, strong and wild, Meg to the turtle dove, Amy like the lark, and Beth to what I assume is a sandpiper. For me, this chapter, as sad as it is the heart of the book. Thank you so much for choosing Little Women as our December read, and season's greetings to all.
Thank you, Heather.
Oh, yes, thank you, Heather. I think you're so right. And in that chapter, I think there's a bit of the authorial voice in that, where it describes how the girls look to everybody else at the seaside, and how one's so strong and fit and obviously in good health, and the other looks so weak and is obviously very ill. And I think that sets the tone at the beginning of that chapter, and it really does help us. And I love that you focused on the bird imagery, because I think, music goes and birds are quite, that imagery happens a lot in the book.
It's a real motif in the book.
It is, and with them, and even the way the girls sing, I think they're described as like poor Joe, like is not.
She's the gull.
Yes, she's
like,
the gull,
and strong. And
yes, but like
fierce.
discordant with her singing, and that's at the very beginning. They describe them singing around the piano, and she often comes in with a wrong note and all the rest of it, and you could just tell that that both Marmee and Meg have this really lovely voice, and this is part of it too. And interestingly, Marmee's voice is described as being like a lark, and in this description, so's Amy's. She's growing into, without yet being a mother at all, but there's the connection between Marmee and
Amy with that. I hadn't noticed that.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Music and singing are important to both Beth and Amy.
Very much
as well.
Yes.
Amy sort of plays a tribute to Beth at the end of the book when she returns home with Laurie, and she plays on the piano and sings Beth's songs.
Yes.
And Beth is still there as a presence, partly through the music.
Absolutely.
So I think that's so true that birds and music are important.
And Meg actually is the turtle dove, and their first home is called the
Dovecot.
Yes. I think that's so lovely.
It is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know. And I think one of the reasons Little Women is such a comfort read for me is because there is tragedy, there is hardship in the book, but it's dealt with so gracefully and with such an element of comfort too.
Yes.
That I think
doesn't shy away.
No, it doesn't shy away from the hard things, but it shows how the girls in the novel cope with the hard things and still manage to find happiness and love and good things from life.
Yes.
So I think that's why it's a comfort read.
Definitely for me too.
As well.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then another theme that, of course, really speaks to our hearts is the theme of motherhood.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I don't have siblings, so although I love reading about the theme, of sisterhood and also female solidarity in general that I think is really a part of this book. What also really speaks to me is the very close relationship the girls have with their mother, and how that is such a loving relationship that's also very much based on friendship and not just a mother-daughter sort of hierarchy.
No, not at all. And there's a lot of trust between both sides in this.
Yes.
And the way Mommy tries very hard not to lecture, but just to suggest and ask permission to sort of interfere often. She'll say like, oh, do you mind if I talk to you like when you were a little girl?
Yes, yes.
I'm very touched by that. I must admit that, as a young mother, when I read all this, I really was trying very hard to think, I did find Mommy an excellent mother, I guess, and in her approach to her daughters.
Yeah. And another of our readers, Myriam, sent a voice message, and she also commented on how much she liked Mommy, what a good mother Mommy is. So let's hear Myriam's message.
Hi, Miranda, Donna, and all the Comfort Book Club folks. I'm Myriam from Southern California. Little Women is like one of the ultimate comfort reads. Marmee is an amazing mom who instinctively knew exactly when to share her wisdom and when to back off and let the girls figure it out for themselves, which isn't easy to do, by the way. But there were 2 sections in the book that made me wonder if she had some regrets with her parenting of Beth, as she saw similarities between Beth and Daisy, her granddaughter by Meg. Daisy was a sweet, cheerful one, while her twin brother, Damie, was the rambunctious one. Towards the end of the book, it quotes, "Her grandmother watched over her with untiring devotion, as if trying to atone for some past mistake." And in the beginning of the book, when it describes Beth, there is a quote, "There are many Beths in the world, shy and quiet, sitting in corners till needed, and living for others so cheerfully that no one sees the sacrifices till the little cricket on the hearth stops chirping." I thought those were 2 amazing sections. So thank you so much for this great recommendation. Bye.
Oh, thank you, Myriam.
Yes, thank you, Myriam.
And yes, what do you think about that? I kind of felt a bit of Louisa May Alcott's, maybe her own sense of regret over the sister that died or something.
I definitely thought
came
as a mother to lose a child or a grandchild, you would never forget that. She's so anxious about Daisy to me, because life is so vulnerable, especially in those days,
Yes.
And
we realised that in reading a bit about the real life sisters and what happened to them, and how sad a lot of it was.
Very sad.
Amy's, her kind of real life counterpart died very soon after childbirth.
Yes. Yeah, very young still.
Yeah. And life was so much frailer back then.
Yes,
so
it really was, and you feel, I think with Mommy, I mean, this is the thing, that she was very much an admired woman of her time. She, Emerson, for instance, who lent them a lot of money, found her an amazing woman who had great confidence.
The real life one.
Yes, sorry, the real life one. But she was an amazing character, and I think there's so much love for.
Oh yes, there
Mommy
is. I think there's a real love letter to her, the book, as much as to the sisters.
Yes, I think so too. I think she and Louisa must have been very close.
Yes, I think so. And as I've said before, I think it amazes me how long ago the book was written. In some ways,
it feels so fresh.
Still, it does feel so fresh. Obviously, there are old-fashioned aspects to it, and all of the girls are given conventional endings to their sort of stories in a way. I think
because in a way that Louisa felt pressured by her fans to do that. Like, that was the expectation.
It was. I mean, she didn't actually want to marry Joe off. No. All the girls are married off by the end, and she herself never married. So I think she didn't want to give Joe that ending of getting married.
Yes.
And there's rebellion against it in the way that Joe rebels against Laurie, I feel.
Yeah.
But in the end, she felt she had to give Joe a marriage. And this has long caused a lot of heated debate, I think, around the story should Joe have ended up with Laurie? Does it make sense that he chooses Amy in the end? A lot of people really dislike the professor.
Me too.
I don't actually mind him as a choice for Joe. What do you think?
I actually think he's a good character, and it was very interesting. I mean, part of it is the way she does the German dialect. That's kind of irritating. Like,
Yes,
in the way
I know it is.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I actually don't find any of the male characters that convincing. I have trouble connecting with any of them, Laurie included.
Yes,
but
even
Laurie,
John,
even their father.
Yes, Mr. March.
I think I like Mr. Lawrence best.
I do too. He's lovely.
Of the male characters.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just can't really connect with them, and they seem quite shadowy figures to me. I think the girls are so well drawn. All of the female characters are, but I think the male ones let her down a bit. I don't think she was as good at writing male characters.
I agree that. Although I think actually Demi-John, is actually done very well as children.
Yes.
She's actually very good, and in the later books, I think she gets young men quite well.
Yes.
But at this point, the sort of love interests, I think she finds much harder.
Yes, I think she does. But let us know what you think about that, and the whole Laurie, Amy, Joe triangle. I think in the end, Laurie and Amy are pretty good together.
I think so too. I think they will get along well.
Yes.
They won't quarrel. She can handle him really well.
Yes. But yes, we'd love to hear your opinions on that. But this has been such a fun discussion.
It has.
Lovely way to wrap up our year of comfort book club.
I can't believe it really is. It's been another year. It's been very nice.
Yes. So I hope you've enjoyed reading along with us this month too. Thank you again to everyone who sent in a voice message. I will put a link to the Comfort Book Club upcoming reads for the new year, so you can go and check them out. But just as a reminder, the January read is Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce, which I'm looking forward to returning to the Comfort Book Club. But yes, thank you so much for everyone who's read along with us this year, and indeed even since the start of the book club. It's been so much fun reading with all of you over the year, and thank you for all of your support. I hope that you've got lots of wonderful reads ahead of you in the new year. But we're signing off now for our Christmas break. And I hope you have the happiest holidays filled with some good books.
I think that's de rigueur.
Definitely. I know we're going to enjoy a little quiet reading time. But yes, wishing you all the happiest of holidays, a wonderful start to the new year. Thank you to everyone for all of your amazing support over the last year.
Thank you.
Extra big thanks to those of you who pressed the super thanks button on my last video. There was some incredibly generous support, which we really appreciate so much. But we appreciate everyone who's left comments this year and subscribed to my channel and liked my videos. You all mean so much. And yes, wishing you all the very best for 2024. We'll see you again then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.